Yabusele. Lovely little dummy. Yabusele on LeBron James. Wow.
Did Tobias Harris ever do that? I know I'm late to the party, but the Sixers actually signed a power forward, a position that has been foreign to them for the past 85 years. Guerschon Yabusele, the Olympic standout, is now a Philadelphia 76er, and Paul George has some pretty interesting things to say on his recent podcast episode. I'm going to give my reaction to that, so please stay tuned. But first off, I just want to thank you guys for 60 subscribers. If you're just tuning into the channel, I'm NZ, and I'm a Sixers psychopath. I love the Philadelphia 76ers, and I love talking hoops. And if you do too, I highly recommend you like and subscribe on this video so we can keep the content going, we keep the channel going. But without that out of the way, let's get down to business. The Sixers for so long have been trying to find the ideal fit next to Embiid at the power forward position, but it just really hasn't worked out with the type of personnel that he had to work with over the years. You had PJ Tucker, who was way too old, just cooked, didn't shoot threes at a high clip, called him pump fake PJ for a reason. The real ones know. You had Tobias Harris, obviously. I'm not going to go on a rant about him. We know what he's all about. And then you had Paul Reed, who they tried from time to time. It didn't really work. Paul, he just sort of wasn't really didn't have enough finesse, was way too chaotic, and sort of just lost his ability to really rebound at an effective rate, like towards the end of the season, and especially in the playoffs. He was terrible in the playoffs. But hopefully, he gets an opportunity to play in Detroit. But Yabusele, now that, I think about it, he's like an evolved Paul Reed. He's the type of player that we sort of expected Paul Reed to develop into at an earlier stage of his career. Throughout his international career, Yabusele averaged 12.4 points a game, 5.1 rebounds a game, but surprisingly, this is an underrated aspect of his skill set, shot 40% from three on 3 attempts per game, which is interesting because that's something that he really hasn't shown in the Olympics and something that really wasn't talked about as he was, getting more attention throughout the Summer Olympics. But Yabusele, he's actually was, one of the better floor spacers in FIBA. And the FIBA three-point line distance is 22 feet compared to the NBA's, which is 23 feet. But nonetheless, if he's able to adapt his game or adapt his ability to space the floor, and if he can shoot threes, at least be a threat from anywhere on the court, like that can work really well next to Embiid. And that can really add a whole new layer to the offense and defense that Nick Nurse can work with. Because Yabusele looks like a completely different person. He is ripped, he bulked up, but slimmed down at the same time, and really looks like a miniature Ben Wallace, to be honest. And he really formed himself to be, a stereotypical power forward that the Sixers can now utilize, and he can hopefully he can make an impact and find his way into the rotation. He certainly has more of an offensive bag than Paul Reed and PJ Tucker ever did throughout their careers, but in terms of his fit, compared to someone like Tobias, I think it's night and day in how natural it can be. Because Tobias, he did grab 6.4 rebounds a game, had those sort of averages throughout his time here with the Sixers, but he never honestly boxed down and was just stat padding, always getting those boards against trash teams. You're never really watching the game and thought to yourself, whoa, Tobias, that's such an amazing rebound. You really crashed the boards. You were really getting down and dirty in there, fighting with all those physical players. And you never really heard the announcer say, oh, and Tobias Harris with a huge defensive rebound or a huge offensive rebound to really swing the momentum or stop the bleeding or whatever. Because one of the Sixers' biggest weaknesses was that they really were prone to teams going on a lot of runs. Because the insecurity that they had on the rebounds, teams, they took advantage of that. And they were able to get those extra opportunities, those extra shots, those second chance points that were killing the Sixers throughout the regular season when Embiid was out, and especially in the playoffs when you didn't really have enough solid rebounders on the team. By Yabusele, I think he can fit right into the mold, and big kudos to Daryl Morey for making this move. For him still staying vigilant throughout this offseason. A lot of quiet throughout the NBA offseason, but he's still scouting, looking for talent to add to this Sixers team. And this Sixers team, it's looking really good. we're finally filling in some extra holes. I still have some concerns. Maybe I'll make another video on that. But regarding the Yabusele signing, I'm all for it. I have a lot of confidence in him, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this season. In other news, Paul George is getting himself into some controversy with some Sixers fans over a comment he made recently on his Podcast P episode. He had Chet Holmgren and Karl Anthony Towns on the show, and they were chopping it up. But at some point in the podcast, Chet Holmgren asked PG whether him or Embiid should take the last shot, something like that, something about a late time game scenario where they need a bucket. And this is what PG said in response. That's a Nick Nurse question. I'm going to deflect that to Nick Nurse. Whoever Nick Nurse draws it up for, we're going to get the best shot. I've dealt with that. You know what I mean? I've been on teams with other superstars, and we live and die with whoever takes it. On the surface, that doesn't really seem like that outrageous of a statement. I mean, you have three really good players in Embiid, PG, and Maxey. I guess what he's getting at here is that, they sort of just go with the flow, just do what's best for the team. And there's nothing really wrong with that, to be honest, because you have the guard, you have the wing, you have the big trio, and depending on the late game scenario, whether you need to inbound the ball quickly, and if you do that, Embiid gets double right away, but then you could kick it out to PG or something, or if Maxey's bringing up the ball and you set and be like sets like a quick pick and roll, and you get some action in there or something, or someone else sets a screen or whatever. There's a lot you could do in a late game situation. But I guess the controversy here that fans are upset with is that PG didn't actually mention Maxey. He didn't say, well, I mean, you have Maxey too, so we can work with that. He didn't mention Maxey at all, and some fans, ruffled their feathers a bit. But to be honest, I'm really not fazed at all by this comment that he made. It's being way blown out of proportion. I think he just didn't mention Maxey because he was being asked between him and Embiid. I don't really think that has anything to do with the chemistry of the team. Like he said, that's something that Nick Nurse can decide for. It just seemed like a humble comment. So I don't know what people are really getting so upset about. Maxey, he's proven himself to be an all-star who can really, in the late game, turn on those jets and get you some buckets. We've seen that in the Knicks series, and I think Paul George knows that. I think they already have a really good relationship. PG had Maxey on his podcast before, and they seem to be really gelling together. And I think this is actually it's kind of like a petty thing to argue about, because why aren't we just celebrating the fact that we finally have a third guy? We have multiple guys actually who can hit clutch shots, who you want to have the ball in their hands when things get tough, and when you need to save your season or to save the game or whatever, you need someone to step up and make a tough shot. We have three of those guys now, and it's cool. It's like a good problem to have. You know what I mean? Like, there are some problems that are like good to have. The Sixers, they have such a much more coherent, dynamic, versatile roster now. There really aren't many things to criticize. I'll make another video regarding my final concerns sort of going into the season and like my official season preview for the Sixers. But I think it's a good problem to have, to be debating on who out of three pretty good clutch shot makers who should be taking the last shot. And I think it should be exciting to see those late game scenarios and who the ball goes to and how those defenses respond. But that's all I got for this video. If you guys agree with what I said, if you disagree, let me know in the comments. Thanks so much again for 60 subscribers. It's been really fun building this community and interacting with you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're new around here, if you enjoy some more Epic Sixers content. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace. Music.